Well, to get more on this story, we can speak to that same Paul, who is now in Gisenyi. This is in Rwanda, which is just over the border from DRC. Paul, thanks for staying across this story. I mean, the situation seems to definitely have de-escalated from some of the images we saw last week. But now talk to us about the humanitarian and medical situation and those concerns by Africa CDC about possible disease outbreaks.
Yes, Wahiga, the situation here in Goma remains dire. We are hearing reports about over 700 people killed and close to 3,000 people injured. But right to speak about the cases of spread of diseases according to UN groups, it's believed that about 143 people who were diagnosed, of course, with Mpox have fled the camps where they were quarantined in. Now just about 15 people are left there, and there are fears that diseases like Mpox and cholera would spread beyond Goma into neighboring countries. So the situation still remains dire. There are also concerns about people who still remain dead, people who remain unaccounted for, and this has caused most people, of course, to flee their homes without an idea of where their next destination would be.
Indeed, quite a worrying situation. And then, of course, there's a message from Africa CDC and other UN groups that a ceasefire is needed to be able to get a handle on some of those challenges you've explained. There's this upcoming summit where the presidents of Rwanda and DRC could be meeting. What's the hope like, you know, with those you're speaking to about a ceasefire in the coming days?
Yeah, well, people who have been moving into Gisenyi here on the Rwandan side of the border with the DRC, they just want this conflict to end. And it's believed that this joint summit between the East African and Southern African leaders will help to provide those solutions. But of course, there still remains some doubt because previous attempts to get a ceasefire have yielded little fruits. We recall the attempts by Angola to broker a ceasefire. That was in place, but it was not respected. So people fear that even if a resolution is taken this weekend, it still will not be respected without goodwill.
Paul, if you can very briefly, just speak to us about movement between, for example, Gisenyi and Goma. Are residents able to move easily? Were you able to? How difficult was it for you to access Goma, for example?
Well, it was not that much of a challenge to cross into Goma itself, but what we realized was the fluidity walking into Goma itself. There's life that has returned partially in Goma, and what we've seen is that there are people who are also leaving Goma, entering into Gisenyi freely, but they go through some robust security checks. Sniffer dogs will look through their luggage to ensure that they are indeed legitimate travelers and make sure that they are traveling for good purposes and, of course, not for bad reasons. So what we've seen is that people are crossing on both sides of the border. It's pretty much easy, although the checks are very stringent and robust, but more and more people continue to walk through this border every day.
A fluid situation. Thank you for giving us the latest updates, Paul Njie, and stay safe.